Alright you guys, welcome back to Little Man Big Conversations. I have had the pleasure thus far of interviewing a lot of people throughout the history of wrestling up here in Queensland, be it the guys that were here that were started, be it the guys that I started with. But hey, today I get to interview one of the guys that I think I had my first tag match with. Technically it was my second match. He is one of Queensland's pioneer wrestlers. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to proudly introduce to you the one and only, the freaking Kelso Kahoniz. Kelso, man, how are you, man?
Kahoniz. I believe it's the Cockroach Kahoniz now.
Sorry. My sheet was out of date. The Cockroach.
Because I never really go away.
That's true. I mean, how long would it be for you now, collectively?
I would have started in June, or winter 2006, so I would have been in year 8. And I was in this kind of random induction of junior wrestlers. They had a full roster of actually I think everyone was pretty young.
Right.
But I think when I was starting, you had AJ Istria, Mark Davis, Ash Riot, Cam Tino. I think Davis is only a few years older than me. So if I was 13, he must have been about 16.
Right.
And then you had your other boys who were about 18. But there was a group of us that were fresh 13-year-olds, or even, I think one of them was even still 12.
Okay.
And needless to say that no one lasted very long.
Different times.
Yeah, here I am, still wrestling to the day. My debut was November 2006, the last major Impact Wrestling show before they changed over to IPW.
Wow.
So the one they had in the Sharks RSL or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that was the last. So I managed to just get the end of Major Impact.
It snuck in.
Yeah, snuck in.
Snuck in for the rebrand. That's awesome, man. I never knew because I knew that you were around obviously earlier on.
Yeah.
But I never knew that you were able to sort of sneak in for that last MIW show.
They had a rookie rumble, and originally when they did their the tryouts day with all the rookies, I didn't make the cut. But then they were practicing for the Rumble, and I was there at training, and I would just get in the ring and just take a beating through the Rumble and just take excessive amounts of bumps.
Yeah.
And Sweet Ass was no, we're going to put him in there. We're going to put him in this match.
Well, speaking of matches, man, I said just before, when I came in, I think it was early, if not mid 2008, and my friend Blaze had debuted, and I was I really want to sign up. And
didn't you come to one of the shows and then kind of got brought in for a fan segment before?
Yeah.
A dance-off, wasn't it?
Thank you for bringing that up.
I'm pretty sure your first appearance in the ring was a dance-off.
We don't talk about that.
Did you guys kids?
Yes. It's so much more credible when you say it that way.
Hello, young man.
Yeah. No, I have spoken about this on the podcast previously. Yes, my first show was also my first inverted commas in-ring moment. Yeah, Shock Therapy were doing a dance-off. They had 3 kids. They wanted 4. No other kid was there. Much like you sneaking in for MIW, I snuck in for this segment. I went, I'm a kid. I had that really oversized...
I'm pretty sure you won as well. You beat a bunch of children at a dance-off.
Oh, man. My most proudest accomplishment to date. I had that gigantic red jacket, zipped that up, did a dance. I think Scott Black was on the mic and he said, "That's the greatest thing I'd ever seen." And I'm like, cool. And then, I got given... as a prize, I didn't know if there were prizes, but I got given by one of the members of staff Cruise's original black and blue WCW Australia jersey.
Oh, nice.
And then 2 years later, I ended up using it as mini Cruise. So it all worked out in the end. But yes, thank you, Kelso. I beat up kids in my first dance-off.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. But upon joining up, my second ever match was me and Blaze and I should say, versus you and Mighty Hercules. Do you remember me coming in, or do you remember that match at all?
Yeah. Well, me and Herc had because we did the Rumble, and then I don't think the next show was until about a year later, because they kind of went into rebranding. They had a bunch of guys break off and create PWAC, and you had a bunch of people who were breaking off and creating. Oh, I can't remember what it was called. It was
XSE?
They I think they had like one show or something like that.
Yeah, it was like 3 or 4,
they were broken off and PWAC had broken off, so they kind of had to like rebuild their roster with IPW, and they kind of joined up with Impact Wrestling in New Zealand. So the idea was that they would bring over a group of New Zealand guys every show to pack out their roster. So me and her debuted on that show, and then we pretty much just wrestled each other excessively for about a year. Like,
oh wow,
yeah, we weren't working anyone else. And then eventually, I don't even know what the angle was, but we got teamed up together. And we got, I think we only had one official tag team match. And like we were going pretty good as heels. Yeah. And we had a match with you and Blaze, who were like fresh green. I think Blaze had been training for like what, 2 months, and you.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So we were like the 2-year vets. Yeah, that's like the 2-year vets leading you guys through the match, and just as you do, like we've got Blaze, who is probably like what, 6'1", he's a tall guy. Yep. And we had Flashman in there, so we just went to town on Flashman. Yep. To be fair, I don't think we actually did too many moves to him. I think we were just like, we were doing like kind of like a working out gimmick.
Yeah,
we were making Flashman do like, I remember having him in a tree of woe and just like grabbing him by the hair and making him do sit-ups in the corner. And like,
still got photos
Hercules
of that,
would bring him out, and then Hercules would do squats with him on his shoulders before he slammed him down. Yeah. We thought the match was pretty good. Yeah. We got epic heat. Like, I feel like if you get a big hot tag and the crowd goes off for it, then your match was good.
You've done your job.
And then when we got back after the match, Hawk's like, what was that? What are you guys doing? You guys beating up Flashman, like,
really?
You guys taking liberties, he's smaller than you and beat him up. I'm like, we're the smallest guys on the card. Everyone takes liberties of us. Like, we do it one time. And they was like, no, never again. You guys, never again. So,
wow, so he...
me and Hercules were done. I don't think Hercules wrestled for that much longer after that anyway. I think he kind of spat the dummy and quit pretty soon after.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the one-time tag team of me and her.
Well, no worries, man. Happy to accommodate. Yeah, no, I remember that match. But that's crazy. I never knew that story until pretty much just now. I remember doing that match. I remember coming back and being like, I didn't think you guys were taking liberties.
You were stoked. It was your second match.
Yeah. I was happy, man. I got to team with my friend and got to verse, legit wrestlers that were there way before my time. So I was like, yeah, this is cool. And we're all of like roughly around the same size and frame, excluding myself. And but yeah, it was. I thought it was fun, man. But yeah, that was the time there in IPW that we first sort of crossed paths and were able to work together. But take me back to how it all sort of began for you. Were you always up here in Queensland, or did you travel?
I lived out at Cleveland, so I wanted to wrestle since I was like 5 or 6. Like, it was always on the cards.
Did you bring wrestling into the household, or was it?
No. My parents watched wrestling. So I think our first matches I would have seen was like Edge and Christian versus the Hardy Boys, and they're like, oh my god, what is this? Oh, wow. I remember they kind of like, I think it was during like. Well, if I started wrestling when I was watching wrestling when I was about 5, that was like 1998, 1999, so peak Attitude Era. Yeah. I think it was a bit edgy, and they were kind of like, let's not let him watch this, because I know everyone talks good about the Attitude Era, but if you go back and watch it, like, it just has absolute trash. Like, you'll have like 1 or 2 really great moments, and then just absolute trash in the middle. Yeah. So I think they just kind of wanted to not expose me to that trash. But I remember just like catching them watching, like, I think it was maybe even like Kane and X-Pac versus the Hardy Boys or something, and I was like, what is this that I'm not allowed to watch? I'm watching this. So yeah, that was it. And then I like training. We were like, because I was 13, I had to like get the train from Cleveland to the city to the Gold Coast, and then get your hour-long bus ride from there out into the middle of nowhere. Wow. Where they had like the training centre was next to when he still had his sex shop. So it was a sex shop in one side, and then the wrestling ring in the other side.
Was it Ashmore?
Yeah, Ashmore, yeah.
So how did you...
Not the one that you guys were in. There was one like nearby before that.
Right.
But yeah, so he had his sex shop one side and the wrestling ring in the other.
How did you come to find or be known?
We had
of the training.
We had family who used to go to it all the time. I remember Buddha.
Yeah.
So Buddha used to be one of the announcers for a while. He's just an avid wrestling fan. He used to go to all of the MIW shows. So I think when I was about 12, they took me down to one of the shows in the Southport Arena. I can't remember who was on it. I remember the people who I remember on the card the most was Cruz, obviously. Cruz would have been the main event. I think I've got a photo with Cruz after the show.
Cool.
And then Saxon was on the show. Yes. Yeah, I loved Saxon.
Yeah.
And Zero, who was wrestling as Checkers at the time.
Wow.
And he was probably skinnier than I am now, doing all these flips and shit. I was like, oh.
You're right. And you were just hooked. You were like, there's something.
Yeah, I was like, I must have been 12. So I've been in year 12. Mm-hmm. No, not year 12, year 7.
Yeah.
And then the following year, when I was on the mainland, it was like, they've got training. Let's do it.
Wow. So Buddha ended up essentially picking you up all the way out of Cleveland and went, let's go take the drive down to Southport. Man, okay, so you were hooked from that moment. You're I have to do this.
I was already hooked from when I was 5.
Right. But now you're really hey, you can do this locally.
Yeah.
Man, so you made that long journey down. I want to how many days a week did you make that journey? And how the hell did you get back?
Yeah, it was Saturday trainings at the time. So so that was every Saturday.
Yep.
For it must have been until Tim Cade.
Yeah, yes.
Still the big boy Tim Cade. Until he started training, and he must have started in maybe 2009, or maybe was he started before you or after?
Yeah,
you?
he was established as mystery at that point.
Was it 2008?
Yeah, because I came in 2008, and he might have been a couple months before me.
Yeah, all right,
maybe, but he was already established as that masked character.
So he, it must have been 2008. So it would have been 2 years of getting the train down every Saturday to train, and it was 3 hours there, 3 hours back. And then when he started training,
because you guys were school friends.
Yeah, he went to my high school. So there's a couple of us that, from the high school started training at the same time, which was kind of convenient. There was a few mums to share the drive, but we would try and go 2 times a week, and it was only an hour and a bit drive.
Right.
But when I was doing the train on my own, that was rough.
Yeah. Because what time was training running at that point?
It would have been maybe 10 in the morning. So I was get up at 7.
Yeah, you'd be
get a train.
Yeah, you'd be 5, 6 a.m. starts just to get out the door.
Yeah.
And that's commitment, man. So how long were you doing that journey until
2008. So about 2 years of that, and then it must have been. I would have kind of left IPW at the end of 2009. Because I always kind of had intentions of taking some time off for year 12 while I was finishing high school.
Sure.
And then I remember we moved from the proper shows at Narang into just doing shows at the training centre. Yeah. They were weekly shows.
Yep.
And I was I don't really want to wrestle
every week.
Weekly shows in front of 40 people.
Yeah.
And they also had it was when they had their fresh group of 13-year-olds, except they weren't booked the same way as I was, where I went in there and trained and wrestled with the senior guys. They had their own junior class that was just who was it? It was Seb Max, Dalton Briscoe, who was Fred Awesome at the time.
Yeah, Reaper.
Reaper was a bit later, I think. I don't know, but there was a bunch of them that were 13. Tony, a little 14-year-old Tony Storm.
Yep.
And they were coming in, and I remember there was a couple of shows. There was a show that they wanted me to come down, and they just wanted me to manage on the show. And I'm you've got all these 13-year-olds have been training for 2 months, booked on this card. And you want me to come down, you want me to drive all the way down on Halloween weekend as well.
Right, yeah.
You want me to drive down on Halloween and manage? I was nah, I'm not going to come down this week unless I got a match.
Right.
So I didn't come down that week, and then went to training, and Hawk had sent around the rumours. He told everyone that I quit IPW and gone to PWAC.
Oh,
and I'm
right.
I haven't gone to PWAC. I go to their shows pretty regularly, but I haven't
and that's because they were closer.
Yeah. It was easier for me to get to go watch their shows and go. But yeah, they were yeah, Kelso, he's gone to PWAC. So I got a call from Timmy being like, hey, did you go to PWAC? I'm like, no. I'm sure at high school I would tell you that I've gone to PWAC if I went to PWAC.
Yeah.
And then after that I was like, no, what's the point in doing this? I'm going to take time off at the end of the year. Like, so this isn't what I want to do.
So going back a bit before we talk about the IPW journey leading into PWAC, my incentive is that I was told that another wrestler down there at now IPW, or maybe it was still MIW, because he was training still under the MIW banner at that point.
Yeah.
How did the concept and the character of Kelso Kahoniz come about? Was that something that you had derived, or was it multiple people coming in?
My nickname was Kelso just forever.
Right.
And then when we were like brainstorming, I think in the Rumble I just wrestled as Kelso.
Right.
And then for my first singles match, Sweetass was like, you can't just be Kelso, you gotta have a last name. And they were coming up with like just random things that kind of like were like what alliteration is it?
Yeah.
And eventually he's like, they call you Kelso Kahoniz because you've got big cojones.
And that was it.
Yeah, and then I was like, let's just spell that a little bit differently. Yeah. And then long and behold,
it stuck.
It's kind of like just good to have a name that can like evolve.
Yeah.
I don't have to change my name. It's been the same wrestling name, and I can use that for whatever character I need it to, which is, I think, a convenient thing.
Oh man,
you don't have to.
You had a much better brainstorming experience than my Flashman name.
Because you just wore the jumper, right?
I wore it was so cringe. I look back at it now and I'm like, why? And I've said this to Blaze and I've said this to Sweet Assassin over the years, is I don't know why, but I remember wearing that jumper to my first training. And I remember being like, people know who I am because I was that dancer, yeah. And the look of like just horror and like disgust from like guys like yourself and Herc and Brandy being like, who the hell is this guy? And I remember walking into the little room that Hawk had at the sweatshop, and Blaze said, hey Peter, this is my friend James, he wants to join up. And I remember Hawk had that maroon chair, that famous maroon sort of office chair, and he swung back in it, took his glasses off, gave me the look over and goes, oh yeah, the fucking dancer. And I went, yeah, cool. And then, we had a discussion about the name, and he said, do you have a name you want to wear? Or do you have a name that's in mind? And I said, well, I've got this jumper, and I said, it's got the lightning bolt in the back, and it's the Flash logo, and he's like my favourite hero. And I think Brandy and maybe Ash sort of quickly piped up and said, oh no, we've already had a Flash down here. And I went, oh damn. And I thought, well, now I'm going to get some like random name like Tom Plummer or something.
Tom Plummer.
You know what I mean? Like some random, 80s name where it was like, your gimmick was your name kind of thing. And Hawk said, what about Flash Man? And that was it. And I was like, okay. And admittedly, the first couple of months I was like, I'm not really sold on this name, but once the whole Blaze and Fury Rogues thing picked up, I was like, okay, yeah, well, I'll have that name. But yeah, you definitely had a better creative moment for your name. Do you remember any of the other alternatives that they came up with before landing on Kahoniz?
I think it was Chaos or...
Kelso Chaos, with a K.
Crap.
Yeah.
That's the only one I can't really think off the top of my head.
Was there anything like Kelso Cleaner or something? Kelso the Cleaner.
Like...
He cleans up in his matches. Yeah, crazy man. All right, so you have your IPW journey, you do the MIW Rumble, you come back after a certain amount of time while IPW's established.
I actually, I had full intentions of not wrestling for year 12. And then someone messaged me about Prowl. I'm trying to think. Cam Tino.
Okay.
Yeah, because Cam Tino was kind of like one of my mentor when I was first started. He must have been maybe 18 or 19 when I first started. Mm-hmm. And he has started training for Prowl. They had just a wrestling ring in the backyard out in Hammond or something. Right. Somewhere on the Cleveland line. Yep. Which is 20-minute train ride for me. So
yep.
I'm like,
okay.
I am interested.
Yep.
So we went and trained with those guys. But no intentions of really doing shows. Mm-hmm. And we would have just trained for year 12. Okay. And then we had another falling out with them. Right. I'm trying to think of what happened. They wanted us to do training during schoolies. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And then they were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that. And we were like, no, we're not doing that no, we're going, it's graduation, then we're going to schoolies.
Yeah.
And I remember getting this, like, Facebook message being like, you guys just don't take it seriously, you guys just want to train yourselves, and we don't want you guys, like, to be doing this with us.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, we're going to schoolies, like...
Right, yeah, of course.
I'll just ignore that message and continue going along with my life. But then, like, yeah, what got me back into wrestling was... I think they did, like, a show where they had, like, 5 wrestlers. So I remember their first, like, Welcome to the Jungle show had, like, Nova and Blunt.
Okay.
And then they had Jason Emblem, and they had, like, Rip and stuff who were, like, all fresh rookies, but, like, they didn't really have any wrestlers on the card.
Yeah.
And then their next show, they were like, need to fill out the card. So they're like, hey guys, you reckon you can come fill a match for us? So I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And my best friend from high school, Mitch, had trained but never had a match. And I was like, yeah, come on, me son, we're going straight to the top.
I see big things for us, boys.
And then that was me kind of getting suckered back into it. Okay. And like, well, we also done like, and then they were like working with PWAC as well. Okay. And I think Josh Hayes was the one who like watched my matches on Prowl and was like, bring him over. I want to work him.
Right.
And he was like, so I've got this idea. We've got Rumble Rock coming up, and I'm thinking, have you ever seen Corey Worthington who at the party? Who like?
Wow. So it's around this era. Yeah.
Like, have you seen that guy? He's like, so this is like, I'm imagining you with like big sunnies and like a white puffer jacket. And you just go on the radio and just be like, Chris Brown is the best. and I'm like, I am a face right now. I was like wrestling as a face at the time. And I was like, sure.
So you're still like...
I love it, yeah.
You're still doing like the gear that you had down at IPW, like the red?
No, well, I still had the red.
Yep.
And then I added on the like a white puffer jacket.
Right.
My red pants were looking pretty trashy at that point. That was the worst wrestling gear. I might have had a good... name to start off with, but wrestling gear I did not. I just had like that classic high spots, the shiny pant material that like had that classic white star on it that I'm sure like every shitty backyard wrestler in the world had at one point in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't even put it.
Okay, pop quiz. Do you still secretly have that gear?
Oh, I'm pretty sure I've got it somewhere. Oh. No, actually, I think no. So. Because eventually, after like turning into the Chris Brown gimmick,
yep.
And then I was like, it was LMFAO 2011, and I was like, let's do an LMFAO gimmick.
Yeah.
So basically, we went out there, and I had to fight pretty hard to pitch this idea, and thank God someone was like, yeah, just do whatever you want. I don't give a shit.
What is that, PWAC?
Yeah, this is PWAC. I think this was their... they had like some 2-night header or whatever. But the first night I went out there, and like new music, it changes to I'm sexy and I know it. And I literally got those red pants and tore them off and had my rainbow trunks on underneath.
Oh, cool.
And then the next night was even better. And we went out there and we had like some big tag team match, and Tim Cade, Mystery at the time, was tag teaming with my current tag team partner, Skinny D. And I had Mitch in my corner, and we had like, I think Mitch and Zero were out there as well, just they wanted to play around. But basically the end of the match was that Timmy finally gets the hot tag on David after taking like the full heat from everyone. And David gets in there and he's like, wait, and I knew the kids, I'm sexier and I know it. And David tears his pants off and he's got a pair of the DTs on, and we just start gyrating in the ring and just beaten down on Mystery. It was probably one of my favourite things that we ever did. I remember Steve Moore coming in like as soon as we got backstage, because I think he had just kind of taken over a bit of creative booking at the time. We got backstage and he was like, whatever that was, just keep doing it.
And you did.
Yeah, I had so much fun doing that with the original Party Rock
Nation. Yeah, man, I remember seeing photos of that. And I remember seeing, and I'll never forget, it's burned into my mind, it's exactly as you described. You had your rainbow tights on, those big, Corey Worthington yellow framed glasses.
And cruisers. We used to come out carrying...
Yeah, I was going to say, you used to come out with vodka cruisers, man. Were they a shoot? Were they legit?
Yeah, they were a shoot. I remember there was like one like show, and I was it was like a battle royal that had everyone in it, like all the rooks in it pretty much. And I think I was the match straight away after the Rumble. So I was out there with them, and because we all go out there carrying a cruiser, then those three get in the ring, then I'm holding 4 cruisers. Yeah. And then like by the end of the Rumble, I like finished all 4 cruisers and was like, oh shit, I'm gonna wrestle probably Mystery in like 5 minutes. He's gonna run circles around me. Lucky I was in much better condition when I was 18, 19 than I am now.
Man, yeah, it's one of those things where you creatively go, this looks good on paper. And then you get out there and go, yeah, that was look way better on paper.
Nothing wrong with having a couple of drinks before you match. Yeah. Just loosen up a bit.
So how long did you stay doing the party rock thing at PWAC before deciding to sort of...
Oh, it was like going for ages. Oh, and I think we got like a solid year out of it. And then they wanted to break off Jack Haggard and do a new gimmick with him, which was pretty cool. He did like that, The Rejected, which ended up being like one of the worst ideas of wrestling in Queensland wrestling ever. So basically, Jack Haggard, we turned on Jack Haggard and beat him up, and then he disappeared. And then he came back as this like gothic.
Is it still in PWAC?
Yeah, this is still PWAC. Yeah, merging into the first Grindhouse pretty much. Okay. Actually, no, I think we turned on him in PWAC. Yeah. Oh, he still did. He did his debut in PWAC, but basically he was doing like a like Purge style like horror character, and he had like a bunch of cronies. He had like Seb Matters and Renegade in masks, and they were like Purgatory and something else. I can't remember what names they had. Yeah. Actually, I think they had a bunch of the guys now. I think JL Gold was one of them. Okay. Seb Matters, Renegade. They all had like a part where they were wearing like the masks as part of his like weird BDSM cronies.
BDSM, yeah.
And then we had our match was like booked for the first Grindhouse, and there was a big, a solid gap between PWA and the first Grindhouse, and we started running all these promos where I'd like gone off the rails, and because they pretty much just expanded our whole team. Yep. They went on to become the Fishers, the Koi Bombora, and Masked Anger. So just me on my own. They did all these like mockumentary promos where they're like, "Where's Kelso?" Yeah. Got like they find me like covered in bottles and stuff. Like, and then like so the first match that I had with Haggard on the first Grindhouse, like I was coming out as the heel, and then he was also the heel. I don't know, but Mason was booking me as the heel, but because of the promos I was getting face reactions. Right. But I coming out just getting pummeled by him. But basically, I think I did that. Like that was kind of like the breakup of the Pyrock Nation, and I went more off the rails. And then it wasn't until we were doing like fully 18 plus shows that I was kind of pushing the idea earlier. I was like, hey, what if I just got a bag of Coke and just poured it all over my face and then hulked up at the end of my matches? Yeah. And he was like, nah, that's a shit idea. Yeah. Shit idea. And then like started getting like 18 plus shows, and the cards started getting a little bit like less controlled. Yeah. And I was like, I kept like, what if I did it this show? And he's like, well, fuck off, just do whatever you want. Oh, cool. And I was like, all right, I will. Started pouring Coke all over myself to hulk up in matches. Yeah. And then I was like, what if I had a belt where yes. I duct tape a sack of goon to it, and it could become like a hardcore belt. Yeah. And he's like, oh, just do whatever you want. So then that became my YOLO championship. Yeah. Which I think Renegade has. I'm not sure. I can't remember the last time, the last champion that had it. I think I think technically Alex Shepard would be the champion, because I think they had a... well, they did like a unification maybe? A unification match with Humanity versus Rip Riley, and then he came out and stole the match. I think so, yeah. Going from BWAQ to what would then be known as Grindhouse before being a product of the New Globe AWA Grindhouse shows. Do you remember the conversation that came up between going from PWAC to transitioning over to what would
what was it, the tribal theatre era of Grindhouse?
Yeah.
Do you remember who sort of got you involved in that, or was that?
Oh, I was already like, it was a whole roster essentially. Like they bought out the old wrestling ring from who are those guys who did their one-off show up in. They got a government grant and got heaps of money to buy a ring, and then they did like a one-off show. So that the ring that they've got now for AWA.
Yep.
They bought that ring, and then AV bought the PWAC ring,
right? And
then I think Jesse bought a deal on the ring that they bought, and then it was like, all right, everyone, let's bail on AV.
Okay, so there was stuff in motion, and then you go to the tribal theatre shows. Australian Wolf, who's been on this podcast already, he says that the tribal theatre as a live event venue and as a wrestling venue was one of the best experiences.
Easily the best venue. The best venue is always going to be the arena. The first Rumble Rock that we did.
Yeah.
Well, the arena anyway. Not the first Rumble Rock, but the first Rumble Rock at the arena. That was always going to be the best venue.
Yeah.
Just because it's such a classic venue. So many rock gigs had been there. And it was good to have be able to do that before they changed it into Mystique and then finally a car park.
Jeez.
But the tribal theatre was awesome. It had raised. It was pretty old theatre. And what really is a kick in the teeth there, it's been around since the early 1900s. It was the first places that they were doing silent cinema at in Brisbane. And then because Queensland heritage listing's so dumb, you can heritage list a wall, but you can't heritage. Because they had made adjustments to the building over time, it couldn't get any heritage listing, which is piss poor, because the reason it's changed is because we went from silent film to went from theatre to silent film to cinema. They had to upgrade their cinema with the times. They couldn't get any heritage listing, and then they ended up getting bought out by Hillsong Church. And now the first thing they did was they went in there and just tore out all the old seating that had been there for nearly 100 years.
No.
Yeah, tore it all out and turned it into a flat bottom.
That's ridiculous. Oh, that's so upsetting.
Yeah, I know.
I
walk past it all the time, and it's got whatever's going on for their sermon on the weekends. So I was like,
Man, because my next question was, I was going to say, if you had been past it, was it still the same venue that you remember? But kind of jumped the gun and filled it in for me already. That's crazy.
It's still the same in the front. I think outside of it has got heritage listing, but inside they've torn out. I haven't seen it, but apparently they just tore out all the seats straight away.
That's crazy, man. So do you remember the transition between the first initial tribal shows and then making the decision to go, all right, no, to make it go from just a regular sort of all ages event to turning it to 18 plus? Was there a conscious decision?
No, it was because that venue was actually BYO. Which was awesome. So it was all ages and BYO.
Yeah.
So people were loving it. But then people were getting a bit too rowdy, and a fan in the crowd tried to fight. What was AJ's? Johnny St. Michael.
Right. So
a fan attacked Johnny St. Michael during a match. I don't know what the guy was thinking, but basically. Yeah, so you attack someone during a wrestling show, you're going to get all the boys on you. But straight away, Chris Foster, who is I don't know, black belt, he trains jiu-jitsu or I don't know what they call it, but he knows how to fuck someone up.
Yeah, right.
And he just walks down there, and Paresh just grabs the guy, puts him in a front face hug, chokes him out in 2 seconds, and then the boys drag him out. And I remember my favourite bit is Jade Diamond drunk as a skunk, just kicking him in the nuts while he's getting carried out. So he gets carried out to the foyer, and then he comes to, and he's oh my nuts.
Well, yeah, you fell over, man. Oh, sorry.
You fell over, but because of that, then they were no, we can't do BYO, we're going to have to make it 18 plus from now on. So that was the transition from, it wasn't a choice.
Yeah.
It was, Johnny St. Michael got assaulted and we had to choke a guy out.
Wow, okay. So then you transitioned then to doing, bringing in burlesque and up in the ante with it.
Yeah.
Did you, because I've known you always to be, not only in ring, but behind the scenes a creative guy as well. Was this sort of the origins of you starting to do a lot of things creatively behind the scenes at this point?
No, I was kind of... Because there was a time... Well, Mason was the head booker, but he had moved up to Townsville.
Yeah.
And so he just wasn't, like... He was there for, like, maybe every second show at the time.
Yeah.
So obviously, like, it's pretty hard to be booking a show and, like, not seeing what was on the last show and seeing what went well. So there was just, like, a year there. I remember I was kind of given free rein to do what I wanted with the yellow belt throughout the year, which is cool. So you didn't have to worry about me. There was just a spot on the card that was going to be filled with this every show.
Yeah.
And they had their rejected feud, which went for like 3 years. And basically it was Jack Haggard's group with Joe Hayes.
Right.
Yeah, so they had like just built up this group of misfits and they would feud against Mason and his masked guys. And then people kept getting injured and like, so Haggard couldn't wrestle anymore, Joe couldn't wrestle anymore, and then these guys pulled out, so you ended up with like just a new replacement for the rejected every show for this feud that like was meant to be a blood feud, but like the roster was changing. It was in this feud the whole time. Like it didn't make any sense.
Right.
So that was like the big blow off for like that year of wrestling. Yeah, and it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good. And then me and I think Johnny Lucas were like, hey, like, we need like new creative control of the shows. Like Mason's not here. As like good as he's been at it, like you can't run a show if you're not there.
Well, sure, yeah.
So that pretty much we just, the next year we took over the run sheet, which is like a point of bad blood I think between Jesse and Mason. I don't think he didn't find out through Jesse that we were taking over the booking.
Right.
But it was kind of like so the next Rumble, that's probably my first idea was doing the Purge Rumble just to start the show. And then I think my second idea was to make Rip into a monster heel and put him in the in a top spot. And that's still going a few years later. So I've had a few good ideas along the way.
Well, it's interesting you touch on that, man, because I think the last time that I saw you... I mean, I think we'd run into each other over the years, but I think the last time I saw you in a wrestling environment would probably be about 2009, like when you parted ways originally.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I think about 2014, maybe 2015,
I think, was when we were QPW training.
Yeah, so during that stage, as you're well aware, for those listening in, during that time we had started, after I left IPW in 2013, there was an idea that was put in place with 31 Digital, which I was doing the late night show with Scott Black, probably better known most people out there as Grave Tavern. Sweet Assassin was with us. The three of us collectively decided that what if we did a training school that was like an open hub for everyone, from Gold Coast to Brisbane, Sunny Coast, wherever, to come and train and work.
You were wasted that, hey?
And then we also were like, well, the people that were here and were committed and we could build them up and help them all creatively in one way, shape or form, we would then develop a television show around it. So we would do it all in-house and it would be a way to showcase everyone across the board in Queensland, and at the same time everyone had a place to train.
Yeah.
So it really was like a generalised sort of, I guess, bus stop for everyone.
Yeah.
And and then the idea came down, I think it was from Sweet Ass, I want to say it was, and then we said...
I think I would have gotten word of training through AJ, but most likely.
Yeah, because Istria had come on at that point. I don't remember the order and who people was inducted, but I do know, besides myself, Matt and Scott, we got 3 additional trainers, which was Istria, Island Boy, and yourself. And we sort of reconnected, and yeah, it was like we were saying before we started recording, it was like seeing an old videotape, putting it in, hitting play, and going, oh, dude, this is like 2009, except we have beards now. And I had grown. No, I haven't. I think it was only maybe a couple months later, because I remember having my first AWA debut in what was known as Whiplash, which was their Sunday shows.
Yeah.
And I was versing Triple X Rated.
Oh, was that the one that was like a Sunday show in the Valley, the Grindhouse?
It was Valley.
I think they did one of those.
And then...
And the homeless guy came in?
Yeah, there was a homeless... Because it was free. It was free entry. We advertised it as, and there was like the only thing that was sort of... It was during the day. And then, of course, but you go into the theatre and it's like pitch black, so you have no idea what the concept of time is when you go into that theatre. But it was during the day, and this homeless guy comes in, and the whole show he's like, yeah, right, and he had plastic bags with him, whatever was in there, and diverse Triple X Rated, and I think I snuck in like a schoolboy and got the 3 and quickly scurried out the ring, and I was like, well, that was a fluke, and I'm lying on the ramp against the wall there, and I'm going, oh, woo. And I remember like sort of waving at the people that were in attendance, and X came behind me, all at work. He starts beating me down. I'll never forget this homeless guy goes, get the fuck off him! And he's my friend! And he just jumps Triple X, and this old dude's like flurrying him. And I remember X then went from pretending to pummel me to now legit protecting me. And he's got his hands like, as if you're like on the guardrail. He's got one hand over each of me against this wall. And this dude's like, doing these sort of drunk piss-weak forearms. And X is looking at me, he's going, what the fuck, bro? And I'm like, he's like, is this your mate? And I was like, I don't know who this fucking guy is. And he goes, it went from trying to beat me down to try not to laugh. And then, I think it was a similar thing. He ended up, someone came out and escorted him out. Either it was through a sleeper or some sort of, I can't remember, but
I think Jesse came and literally picked him up and carried him out.
Yeah, something like that. Jesse was like, get out of here. But it wasn't until the January, during that time you had pitched the idea. I never worked with Rip previously, but I'd seen his work at Prowl and what he was doing and up at the sunny coast and everything in between. And, that run, I got to say, man, I got to absolutely give you praise and thank you for it, because that run was a complete 180 for me, because I had always been a good guy in a face, and I was like, I have no idea if I'm going to get booed. And I think quite literally the second show, there was every sort of height comment you can imagine, so much heat. My little scurrying around Scrappy-Doo kind of style, like, yeah, you're a piece of shit, see? And then hiding behind Riley, it was the perfect chemistry.
What did we do to set you guys up together?
First show, we had Gold come out with Catherine Minks, and I was on the mic and pissing people off. We got to a point where Gold clocked me on the apron.
I got ripped to beat up Minks.
Yeah, Gold clocked me on the apron, and it was such good timing because someone in the crowd goes, can someone just punch that little fuck in the head? And then Gold just goes, whack! And everyone's like, yeah! And then, at the very end of that match, Catherine Minks came in to check on Gold, and then there's me, like, calling the shots, like, Riley, get up! And then he just absolutely gives her the Riley driver, and, we made it look like, she got carted out, and...
Yeah.
And then ever since then it was just like, yep, the monster sort of was born, and that was absolutely a crazy run, man. I still remember to this day many a Grindhouse show where fans would come collectively, because the shows at that point, were sort of getting like almost like a cult status.
Yeah.
But I remember there was a segment of fans would come for whatever segment Riley and I were doing, and they would legitimately bring more and more each month under the assumption of you have to come and try and shut this guy down on the mic. And it was never advertised. It wasn't like I had a shirt that said, try and shut me down. You can't. Like, it was just this running thing. And I remember starting the matches before Riley, and I'd go out there and either Riley was in the ring or I would introduce him, but before I did, I would just heckle the crowd. And, there was this consensus of guys that would come in to try and, have war of the words, and they never could do it. But... yeah, again, that all came about because of your evil creative genius mind, Kelso.
If you're going to backtrack, we're talking about Triple X, and if you're thinking about Triple X, you can't not think about Parla.
Of course,
Were you there for the wedding of the century with AJ marrying Rufio's sister?
I wasn't there in person. My invite got lost in the mail, but I think during one of the end-of-year AWA sessions that we had, I think we did one where it was like a best-of.
Yeah.
And I got given the footage of that. Man, that is, I got to say, the wedding of AJ Istria and Rufio's sister with Pala. Was Pala like the...
Yeah, well, you think like...
the priest or something?
You main thing, because like there wasn't really... Mason was the leader, was booking it, but he wasn't there.
Yep.
So you had like, for that year of wrestling... he had his storyline with the rejected. AJ and Rufio were given free reign to do what they wanted with their storyline. And basically it just started off with like Rufio coming out and being like, AJ, you know what you did. And then like a few shows down the line, he's like, you slept with my sister. And then I saw a video of it. And then so it kept going from there.
Yeah.
And then the wedding, and it was never referred to. She never had a name. She the way it's Rufio's sister.
Yeah.
And that actual night that we did it, it was like me and AJ opened up the card, and we did like a Bucks night. I don't remember, it had like some fancy name, but a Bucks night bash, whatever.
Yeah.
And every time you did every time you hit you were pinned for a 2 count, you had to go take a shot.
Yeah.
And so we did a couple like basic chain, and then you roll him up, and 1, 2, oh shit, just had to shot the Diego, oh yuck.
Yeah.
And then we got into like a small package. We went 1, 2, roll back, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And then we got there and we just like we're swigging this like Jaeger backwards and forwards. And then like I don't know, the match continues on. It ended up being like such a good match. But we had like one spot where like I got out a paper bag, and I like tease like it's thumbtacks, and I pour it on the ground, and it's condoms, and it's like condoms all over the ring, and I get slammed on the condoms, and then I remember like pulling what the thing that AJ said hurt the most in the whole match was I got a condom and like pulled it with my hand, and then gave him a few chops with the condom on, and he's like, my god, that latex chop was the worst. And then I think there was at one point where he like put me in a figure 4 in all the condoms, and I was like selling and like throwing condoms up in the air. And we had Wayne, who used to be the announcer, and he's, how old's Wayne? Like, I don't know, old classy guy.
Yeah, very classy.
Yeah,
lovely
and I remember he came up to me after the match, and he's like, Kelso, never throw condoms at me ever again. Because when I was selling, I was throwing condoms everywhere. So yeah, old Wayne wasn't impressed getting condoms thrown at him. But then I think the finish of the match was I went to go do my coke spot, and then he kicks me and I accidentally throw it in his face.
Yep.
And he like psychs out and like kills me and wins the match.
Yeah.
And then like for the rest of the show, we were just like at the bar, like doing tequila shots for the crowd, like being like, yeah, it's your box night, we're best friends now. And there's even like a backstage promo where like me and AJ like became best friends. Like, oh man, we're like such good friends now. Like, I didn't realize it was gonna be like this. And then he's like, I don't want your YOLO goon belt. You can have it back, man. You can have it back. I'm gonna lay down for you. And he gets down on the ground. I'm pinning him, and Rufio's there. And he's like, what are you guys doing? And I'm like, pin it, Rufio, pin it. And he gets down. And he's like, oh, 1, 2, 3. I'm like, yeah, new champion.
Yeah.
But yeah, finally we got to the wedding, and yeah, Paolo is the reverend, and Paolo was on the heel rejected team as well. Like, but he gets out there, and I think there was like one point in the match where he was just forgetting all of his lines because he was slammed.
So all those drinks were
everyone was hammered by the time the wedding came along. And he's like, I remember there was like one point where he like forgets his lines. I'm like, hold on, let's do some abstinence shots. And I just pull them out of my pocket, make him do abstinence shots with me while we're up there. And I'm like, right, I feed him the line while we're doing the abstinence shots. Back to it. And then obviously the wedding broke down, and they did get married. It ended up being my girlfriend played Rufio's
I was going to ask you, who was that?
Yeah, because they had an A actor ready for it, and then she pulled out like last minute. So like maybe like the Wednesday beforehand. Yeah. My ex-girlfriend at the time was like Torres Strait, and so she kind of like she could pull off anything. Like so like I was like, you reckon you could be Rufio's sister for us on the weekend? And she can't act at all, so she's like giggling the whole time. We had like a veil over her face, so like, she can be like giggling the whole time. Right. There's this awesome shot like at the end where like finally they beat up AJ, and she like kicks Rufio in the nuts, and then they get cake, and they're like sharing cake, and she like mushes it in Rufio's face. Awesome. So yeah, so technically I'm like Yeah, I've had like some kind of weird relationship with AJ Istria's wife and Richard's sister. Like, I don't know, we're all in it, you know? It's wrestling, man.
It's a carnival. So all that, those creative decisions, was that a hybrid of other people?
That was AJ. That was AJ and Richard's idea.
Yeah.
And then I kind of got dragged into the idea for the wedding, and we all brainstormed it at the training centre.
Wow.
We just wanted to do a main event that wasn't wrestling.
Yeah, because Palo started with us down at QPW.
Yeah.
And then
we did. We planned it all at the QPW ring.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
Oh cool. Yeah. Well, that's right. Because we ran different sessions on different days. Yeah, that would make sense. That's crazy, man, how all that sort of ties in together. Because, I definitely remember not seeing it live, but seeing that segment. But now knowing the backstory. Because I only saw the wedding segment. Yeah. I didn't see the Bucks Party match. And if I did, I think because I saw them separately, I didn't see them as two segments on one show.
Yeah.
I saw them as two segments on different shows.
Yeah.
So to know the Bucks Party, to know everything at the bar, and to know the backstage promo and the segment of the wedding were all done on one show, and those drinks were a shoot, man, how the hell, like, that's awesome. So creatively then for you, you're doing a variant of Party Rock 2.0 at this stage?
Oh, like...
Because I remember you having some time away, and then you came back.
No, I didn't have too much time off then. I was wrestling pretty regularly then.
You did a sobriety... I like... It wasn't time off. It was like we did our homecoming show. Mm-hmm. And I think I missed like the January show, and then I was back in February. Like, it wasn't a significant time off. Okay.
And I used that 2 months to be like, hey guys, I'm 2 months sober. And I didn't want to like... I'm a fan of just like slow building things.
Yeah.
So instead of going out there and being like, I'm a heel now, I was still going out there and being a face, but I was going out there and being like, hey guys, I'm 2 months sober, and if you guys could all refrain from drinking for my match, that would be great.
Yes.
And I'd still try to high five everyone.
Yeah.
So I just like slowly did that until I don't know at what point I was like full blown heel, but then I would have led into my feud with you. Yeah. So I really don't know what point went full blown heel. I still think I was wrestling face for a while.
I think it was like it was one of those sort of like Steve Austin things in reverse, where it was your face, but they hated it. And then if some guys, it's like they're heel and they love it.
Yeah.
So I think it was that gimmick where in your mind, you're like, it was like the overly nice, like, whoa, what a great day. I'm getting a good sweat out, guys, being sober. And everyone's like, shut the fuck up. Like, everyone there is like 18 plus getting crunk, and you're just like, oh, that doesn't look healthy. And it's like, oh, we missed the old Kelso. So I think, you were in the psych-wise, you were being like, hello, everyone, very much William Regal, waving at the crowd and stuff. And they're like, we missed the old Kelso. But we build into our feud. And man, I remember, I think I still have this match, and sometimes I still watch it, man. Like, I watch it, I think the last time I watched it was maybe about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to you just before we went into that, because it was November 2017 at this point, we did this match. And we built it as like a career on the line thing.
We did the House of Horrors first.
Yeah, we did the House of Horrors.
I remember you came over to film it, and I'd like kicked on from the night before. I was fast asleep when you guys rocked up, and I was still half munted. And I got up and I was like, let's film this shit. And I had an idea of how it was going to work, but like the filming looked shit.
Yeah.
And then you went in and posted like just all of the footage pretty much, not cut, not edited, and everyone was like, this is rubbish. And I was like, fuck off. Like, this is it.
Yeah.
I went through and edited it, and it was it was only like, what, a 2-minute video?
Yeah, something like that.
And we had then you came out as the Undertaker after we locked you in the cupboard. So basically we did the House of Horrors match for people who don't know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I challenged Flashman. I can't remember how it came about. This is set up for it, but I challenged him to a House of Horrors match. It was on the Halloween show. Mm-hmm. And basically he comes to my house and he's like, oh, is this it? And he's like walking inside, and then it like flashes to me with like in my room with like a red light behind me, and I'm like, dun dun. And then he's like going down through the hallway, and I had like a big old Queensland that had like 4 or 5 rooms. Yeah. And every time he'd like open up a room, we would cut to like a random horror film. So I think there was like one where he like looks and it's the Grudge, and he's like, oh fuck, yeah. And then he goes in and there's like, what's one where she vomits? The Exorcist, and she's like, and he's like, oh, all right. And there's one with Chucky, and he's like, oh, hey Chucky.
Yeah.
But eventually he like gets to the end, and it's got like it looks like me with like my back to me, and he spins it around, and it's my tag team partner, and then I attack him and we lock him in a cupboard. And then we're like, yes, we've got him. We run off, and then we come running down to the ring, and we're like, yes, right, we've won the match. We locked him in the cupboard. There's no way he could get out of that cupboard. We're like, start counting, ref, and he's doing the 1, 2, 3, and then the gong of the Undertaker hits, and we're like, oh. And then eventually he came down with like full druids and whatnot.
I remember the week of buying those tiki torches and being like, okay, so we can't have fire in this building because obviously the alarms will go off and there was a door, then it would just be a mess. So I was like, what can I do? And I remember finding these electronic tea lights and super gluing them to the top of the tiki torches, and then before they went out I was like, wait. And I was like flicking the switches, and and they would like flicker, and I'm like, this is sick. I don't remember where I found them from, but they were quite literally flicking like little mini candle lights, but they was just battery operated. And super glued to the top of the tiki torch. Just when they came down, it was just like this little flickering like light, and you're like, if you looked up close, you're like, this is cringe. But in the cover of darkness, it's like it looks okay. We did that House of Horrors match. I remember coming and filming it. The ending spot we did, I think
I finished you with a
a pile driver.
That's actually a pretty brutal spot.
Pile driver through 2 chairs. But you were absolute professional. Took care of me like pretty much the whole time. You were just like, okay, we're gonna do this. And I remember saying to you at one point, I was like, now, and you're like, shut up. I'm like, now, and you're just like, here we go. Bang, hit that. Cut a promo saying that half work, half shoot, basically being like, I wasn't feeling too healthy at that point.
Yeah, because you weren't healthy at all, were you? You shouldn't have been wrestling.
Yeah, I was starting, it was like a grey area for me. It was like, I knew that...
I know the second match, you shouldn't have been wrestling.
Yeah, I think the second one, I think at that point, it was very much touch and go for me health-wise at that point.
Yeah.
But I knew if I could at least do what we said we were going to do and get through it, I was like, okay, cool. And... yeah, I came out and we built it as a career on the line. And then I remember talking to you before the match, and I said, like, I remember saying to you just in confidence, I was like, dude, I actually don't know if I'll be able to come back. Like, it's really uncertain for me at this point. And I remember you saying to me, you're like, you need to tell the crowd that. And I was like, are you sure? And you went, yeah. You said, we're not going to do this match and then have you, like, not explain why you're not here. You need to tell them. And I remember, like, flashing back all the way to our second match and thinking, wow, man, like, you and I, like, in-ring, like, collectively haven't done a lot, but it meant a lot for you to say that to me. And to you, it was probably just like don't fucking ignore the crowd. But to me, it really resonated. And then when we did that match, and, stole your finish as, like, the roll-up, because you were getting that small package roll-up.
My small package was my finish at the time. Yeah. I remember after that, I did, like, I even thought of it on the fly I thought of the fly to finish for our second match while we were in the first match.
Yeah.
I came off the top rope and I did a big pile driver through some chairs.
Yeah.
And then instead of pinning him, I picked his arm up and I dragged him up and then gave him a small package. And he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Trust me." And then for the next match, I think I did like a powerbomb pile driver. So I like picked him up in a powerbomb, then did a big jumping powerbomb pile driver, which looks brutal.
Yeah.
And then go for the 1 and 2, and I pull the shoulder up again, and I'm like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
And I peel him up to the small package, and then he reverses it on me and gets the pin. Yeah. And in fact, the pop of that was so good.
Yeah. And this is the bit that leads almost full circle here, because the promise was, the pre-match promo was, you said, Riley's banned from ringside, but Joey Van Zant, my sober nation is my support so legally he's allowed to be here. And then everyone's like, boo. And then you're like, it's contract. That's what you signed. So sucked in.
And then, you're like, the contract also said, my career's on the line. Your sobriety's on the line.
Yeah.
And you had to, like, force me. Yeah.
So you and Joey were sort of fleeing the arena, as it would be, being like, fuck this, we're out of here. I don't want to drink. And then I remember being in the ring and pointing back to where you guys were, because everyone was sort of like clapping me, and I'm like, look at that. And everyone turns around, and there's Big Bad Riley with a funnel and a Corona.
And it wasn't like a proper beer bong. Like, you've forgotten to get it, and then you had to like go to like the shitty China store nearby and be like, this will do.
Yeah, I bought like a funnel, and I bought like this, I don't know if this plastic tubing. And then I was like, all right, everyone just use your fists around the funnel and the tubing. And then it was like, we made it work. Like, we rigged it.
It would have looked so dumb.
But yeah, I remember doing that. And your sobriety was gone. And then, cut the promo. And I, for the longest time, I thought that was going to be it. And I remember, I think after that match, I think I actually quite literally got upset. Not like angry, but I was like crying.
Oh, yeah, you were pretty upset when you got back to the locker room.
Because I was crying because I was unsure.
Yeah.
But knowing that technically my second ever match was with you, and now here we were 2008, so 7 years later, and I was like, dude, this is nuts. Like, this is so crazy. And I remember you being like, because obviously I didn't sort of say, hey, Kelso, I'm going to go to the locker room and cry now. And you're like, okay, cool, man. So I remember you coming back literally worried, being like, what the fuck? Like, what happened? And everyone's like, oh no, Flash is crying. And you're like, oh. And I remember the look of panic initially. You're like, dude, what? And then you sat down and I was like, and I told you what I just said then. And you're like, oh yeah, sweet, man. And then I looked over and you're like 3 Coronas deep by that point. But no, you sat with me and you're like, yeah, that was really fun. And like, it was such a cool experience, man. But
well, the worrisome thing of that is for you to come back and you like be like, not good, is I finished the match with that powerbomb pile driver. And pretty much the only other time that I used that one was in a match with Mystery. And earlier in the match, we tried to do a, what do you call it, the Spanish fly.
Yeah.
And Timmy slipped on the top rope and like landed and like fresh KO'd himself.
Oh.
But he didn't tell me. So he was out on his feet. And he kept wrestling.
Okay.
I thought he was just forgetting the spots and getting sloppy.
Yeah.
But he was pretty much, so he was just running on adrenaline. And then by the finish of the match, I pulled him up and I did that sit down powerbomb into a pile driver. And as soon as I pin him, he stops responding to me because he's like adrenaline wore off and he's that cold.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't think that he's hurt his head earlier in the match.
Cool.
I think that I've fucking broken his neck doing this powerbomb pile driver. So I come back and I'm like, I don't know I don't know how bad it is.
Yeah.
And I think that I broke his neck doing this pile driver.
Yep.
And then so he gets, it's not until he's like on the like stretcher later and he's like starting to come to and he's like, oh man, I really hit my head on the top when I came on the top. I was like, man, you went out cold that whole match. Watch it back. There's just parts of it where I just forearm him in the face so hard and he's like kind of crumples. So I'm like, oh, like when I think about it in like hindsight, I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't know he was knocked out. So when I come back and you were like a bit gassed and emotionally drained. And I'm like, am I just like paralyzed Flashman with my pile driver? No, it doesn't hurt, does it?
I don't remember. No.
I don't know. You dropped me on my head.
Alright, that'll do it for part 1 with the Cockroach Kelso freaking Kahoniz. Hey, if you haven't done so already, please follow Little Man Big Conversations on Facebook and Instagram at LMBC Podcast and at LMBC_podcast on Twitter. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you next week.